and welcome to the Reveal the Legend Within True Story Festival interviews with our world-class speakers. People who have faced the most extraordinary things in life, but it's more that they have come out of that with something that is really worth sharing. And that's who we're speaking to today. The guest that I have on today is truly one of those people that I have been excited to talk to. If I told you I met her in the Napa Valley over a 3-day weekend that was transformed my life and the lives of everyone else in the room with the most expert and exquisite and utterly indescribable way of being worked with, would it make you excited? I hope so. So, without further ado, please welcome Michelle Bongiorno. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Melanie, for having me here. I'm really excited to have this time to talk with you.
Now, I always describe you as a matrix breaker, a matrix releaser, a matrix revealer, because that's the world I come from, movie world. You know, that's the piece that describes the matrix we're all in. And the way I see you is that you come in and you just sort of pull all that structure away so that we can actually see what's going on. That isn't necessarily how you describe yourself, but that's definitely how I would. But today, I have asked you if you will talk to us, first of all, about something that when I first heard you say this, that I just heard a collective sigh of relief and realization around the world. So, can I possibly ask you to open today by talking to us about the woo?
Okay. Yeah. So woo, the word, is one thing that can get up my gander. And I had the opportunity once to take up a rant on this and just condense it down. And Melanie asked me to share this today. And so I pulled it up, I found it, and I'm gonna share this with you. And I'm speaking to the people who are out there doing transformational work. This is who I was speaking to, as well as those people who support them, their coaches. Oh, truly, truly gifted one. You say your work is woo? Woo? Unsubstantiated? Unscientific? Oh. Unfounded? Ungrounded? Oh. So you offer the world woo, goo, stew. With that, who's standing in your queue? Your work is real, needed, desperately needed, by more than just the low apples on the tree. Boo, wake the F up. How dare you ever call your work woo?
Thank you. And it's the invitation to understand that there is a foundation, a grounding underneath the work that all of these amazing transformational people will do in the world. And, you know, that's when I first met you. You told me about the vast experience you have over both time and geography in completely different disciplines, that you've come to understand this in so many ways and from so many different perspectives. But the story that stuck out for me is the generative phonology story. Would you be so kind as to tell us that in your own words?
Yeah, it was many years ago, and I'd been in academia, I'd been to university, but I left and returned many times studying just what I wanted to learn. And I finally decided I should have something to show for it, like a degree or something. And so I went back and they looked at my pilot transcripts and told me, take these 4 classes. And one of them was a class in generative phonology, a linguistics class. Don't even ask me what generative phonology is. But for some reason, I wanted the degree enough that I said yes, enrolled. And the saving grace was that there was a phenomenal instructor. She was so interesting. It's something about the study of sounds and how you put sounds together. It's kind of like, it was like a calculus class, but using sounds. And I would attend, the teacher was fascinating, and she would give take home exams that were a bitch. there'd be 10 questions, a week to do it, and I couldn't even understand the questions, let alone the answers to them. These were not multiple choice questions or true false or look it up in some book. This was, you had to really grok the stuff. And so I would take it home, I'd read the questions, and I'd set it aside. I was at the time working in a greenhouse farm on the Big Island, big open-sided greenhouse houses to keep the abundant rain off the plants so they could grow and thrive and produce. And while I was there working outside in that setting with pouring rain in the greenhouse and whatever, and attending to the peas and tomatoes and cucumbers and all of a sudden, an answer would come. That's number 3, crystal clear. And I'd run into the house and I would write down the answer to it. And during the course of the week, that would happen. Oh, number 10, number 3, number 4. And like that, I would complete the exam and I would turn it in and ace it. My instructor thought I was brilliant. I felt like I was kind of cheating because I didn't fully understand this stuff, or so I thought. And yet the next take-home exam would come. Again, I did not understand the questions, let alone the answers. And the same thing would happen. And I began to wonder if maybe I could rely on that. And I did. I made it through that course, A+. I can't even tell you what generative phonology is, but I aced that course. And I became really curious. What was going on there? How did that happen? And over the next many years, the answer to that question became clearer and clearer to me.
I mean, that's your life's work, isn't it? You've basically been in pursuit of the answer to that question. And not just the answer, but you've found the answer in many different ways.
At least I found part of the answer. You know, there's always greater understanding and more to it, but I have enough to know that that wasn't just a woo experience. I can say it now and share it and not feel like, oh, people are going to think I'm really ungrounded. I passed my tests, with flying colors. Even when I didn't know where to begin, those answers became accessible to me.
And that's the extraordinary part of it. And of course, one of the answers is there's always more. And that, to be fair, is something that I'm hoping by the end of this conversation, people will understand at least what that means. Now, this isn't where you started necessarily. The expectations on you were set a little bit before all of this beautiful discovery. I know the story, so I'd love to invite you to speak to that piece, which is such a common experience for so many of us.
Well, you know, I grew up in a small town, and my parents had come from the big city, Chicago, and my father was a doctor in this little small town of 800. And so there was an expectation that all of us would go to college. And so I came along, child number 6, and I was by this point living not in a small town of 800, but I entered a much bigger world, the Bay Area of California, where we moved to. And I went to the University of California. So it's a Sunday late afternoon. I'm in the car riding back to the university. My mom and dad are in the front seat. My dad's talking. It's not a conversation. He's just talking. I can tell he's talking because his hand is on the steering wheel and his hand is in kind of typical Italian style talking mode. I'm only half listening. But then all of a sudden, in my half listening mode, everything stops. All the sounds from the front seat kind of recede into the distance. Had he really just said what I think he said? He had. He'd said, the reason I send my daughters to college is so that they can get a job if their husband dies, and then they can take care of the kids. I mean, he said it with such a tone of foresight and nobility. Something inside of me just began to crumble, to disintegrate. I was heading back to university where I had some big science exams this week. serious science classes for science majors. And I also had a lot of reading to do in the humanities, and I'm not a fast reader. And I don't even know yet why I'm doing all this because I'm not clear where it's going, but I have a sense it's going somewhere, that I'm meant to be something or contribute something important through all of this. And my dad just says that he's investing in my future to just be the backup plan for some guy who doesn't even exist and might never exist. And if he does exist, he might just up and die on me and leave me with these kids who don't exist and might never exist. I was crushed. I was so ashamed. And I continued to disintegrate. This is the future that my dad's investing in for me. I'm out of here. And at the end of that term, I did leave academia. And I continued to have a very interesting life that unfolded, but I'd become disconnected from any sense of purpose or direction. And for years and even decades to come, although my life was moving forward, that disconnected place followed me. Yeah.
And when you tell me these stories, there seems so much like, oh, that those dots join now from the vast distance from that time, in that the disconnect and the reconnecting almost instantly in the phrenology story, it's almost beautiful, that because this sets you on this path and to find purpose and actually do what it is that so many of us are looking for, and you're the one who shows it to us. That's all I can attest to that. I have spent 3 days working with you, and it's enough for me to know that this is what you do. But the thing I wanted to land this in is that you talk to us about, or you talk about, not necessarily to us, but I've been the us. You talk about possibility, about more, where your father had you in that space, and the generative phrenology, whatever that means, or whatever it is, showed you right back in the day how much more there was. What it is now that you know that the rest of us would be better off for knowing.
What I really learned at that time, that while I thought I had a major disconnect inside, and that my dad had wounded me or disconnected me from some important part of myself, my own awareness of moving towards something, because that's what it felt like. I felt like a disconnect. I felt like I was a lone seed blowing in the wind. And I kind of got blown around into a very interesting life. But I didn't also realize that in that choice to just leave academia, not have that be my central place of learning, although I returned many times to learn stuff I wanted to learn, but not to become something, I became a free bird. And I was able to kind of follow in life what came to me, thinking, and in some ways feeling like I was just adrift without direction, but discovering that what I was led to, I might have never arrived at had I just continued forward on the straight academic path and completed that course of learning in the straight educational way. But that as I went out and as I got blown in directions that I didn't expect to be blown, and had choices and openings come to me that I didn't expect, I was introduced to the world of self-development. I'd lived many years in Asia, came back, and was offered a workshop to go to, a training. And I wasn't into, 35 years ago, the world of, weekend trainings and webinars. I'd been living over in the outskirts and back countries of different rural areas in Asia doing my work. And so when I came home and had that offering, I started learning that ancient wisdom and the new biology, the new physics, the new science, they were merging, and they both had something to offer. And as I began learning, fortunately an integrated system, I really learned that my early fascination with change, because I've always been interested in change, that I could participate in that, that there had always been knowledge of and inquiry into how do we bring change into our own lives and the lives of others. And I was fascinated by that. And without realizing I was heading into what would become my life's work, I just kind of followed in the moment, learning this and then learning that, and accumulating a vast amount of knowledge and experience that all just fit together into something so satisfyingly whole. But still not realizing that even might actually be my life purpose, to do the very work I was doing year after year after year after year after year. And it's only recently that everything I've been doing seems to have some grounding under it. Oh, everything that's happened has been to lead me to doing what I'm doing. Nothing has been off course. My dad didn't destroy anything for me. He just, without realizing it, set me free. And I've been that free bird flying, ever since. And I wouldn't say I'm grateful for that moment in the car. There's not that much connection to the gratitude for it, but I do see that it was an essential piece, of freeing me and letting me learn the work I'm doing, just like the work you and everyone who's listening, is doing. That there's a rightness to it. And I didn't know that before. But as I pursued this journey, opening was happening that led to that generative phonology experience, where there was a portal of opening through the work I'd done that allowed me, without expecting it, to have access to the answers that I needed, which led me then to the big questions. Wow, what if the leaders of the world could begin to do the work they needed to do to have access to the answers that we need during our times? And then that led me to work with visionary leaders and high-powered change makers in the world, so that they too could come to more fully opening this matrix that you talked about, this internal matrix that's closed. Could they open it so they would have access with as much ease as I did in the generative phonology tests to the parts of the questions of the world that they're here to address? Yeah, so everything fits together. And that's
And it's that beautiful promise, and it's not one you're making, it's the one we all feel, that there is something beyond. We can feel it. It's sometimes you describe it as a yearning, and sometimes, that's such a beautiful word, but that, for it not to be a yearning any longer, for it to be an easy access to something that is far beyond.
Yeah, we live within the promised land. And, sometimes we're always moving towards some promised land, however we define it, but we're actually kind of in it while moving towards a greater, fuller, more expanded experience of it. So,
and it is the fact that you traveled all through the world in these different belief systems, that you say an integrated, but they actually, we often think of them as being mutually exclusive, but they're not. They are speaking the same language, just in different words or in different paradigms. Your ability to see between and walk between all those worlds is the same. And I'm doing a horizontal line, but you're also saying that this expansion is vertical as well, and also somewhere in time. There's a feeling with me that when you can pluck from the expanse these answers, that they aren't time bound, and that sits well with when you're saying we are already living here, we just maybe don't know it.
And new physics, which I'm not an expert in, explains all that. And so this goes back to the woo place, that it behooves those of us who do personal development work, or who think we've figured out our own systems and that we have something new, that there's grounding under it, and that none of this stuff is separate. You know, our own experiences and the science that's being studied off in some, university labs or whatever, that everything is connected. And I think that in the world, we're yearning for connection. We're yearning with connection to more parts of ourselves, to each other. And we want it. That's what leads all of us who have some mission in life that we put a stake in the ground for to contribute. We want to connect and give that. So I've just come to take great relief in the fact that I am in this moment doing what I'm meant to be doing, and so are you and all of you listening. And that pull forward is a pull that is important to listen to, and to not minimize, and not to reduce into some kind of misuse of words. It's not just grandiosity or greed or wanting more or fame or whatever. We're being pulled towards something, and we don't have to know what it is in order to just follow, because it begins to reveal itself. And I think that as we dismantle this inner matrix that has kind of built up because of our wounding experiences in life, but it goes way beyond that, we were able to step into more of our authentic selves. We're able to access more of our own greater wisdom and knowing. And we all have portals, into this, moments like my generative phonology test. I certainly didn't live in that state every moment where I had access, but I learned that I can open more and more towards living in a state where I know in the moment what's needed to be said, to be contributed, to be not said in the moment. And we hear everybody, talking about intuition or connection to their higher source or their guides or whatever. There's ways that we feel moments when we have connection to more, but we can actually do. We can do our personal development work as a big rock in our life, not just to fix ourselves or repair ourselves. It's such a disservice to humanity, the way therapy has been presented, that we go and we fix ourselves and then we go out and do better. That's not to put down those lines of work, but there's so much more. And I think that that's the one message, if I could leave a legacy, would be that our personal development work is not a fixing or repair or shoring up type of work. It's not like we're trying to get past that. It's ever opening, and it opens to so much more that if we knew the benefits, we wouldn't let a month or a year go by without including that. We wouldn't get so busy that we didn't do that, because it just opens way more value to us than those generative phonology answers open to me. And that's what I've come to know between the ride in the backseat of the car and that experience and then today. And I only have partial understanding of this whole process. I don't even pretend to believe I have the whole picture, but I have way more of the picture than I used to, and enough to be able to support people who are on that journey also to that opening.
I mean, that's certainly your genius, is your ability to open or break the matrix, reveal that to us, open that up for people in the moment, without them even knowing they're participating. It's almost, it's an experience, not a theory. It's an experience. It's an embodied experience, not a something our head gets around. It happens before our head can catch up with it, and that's the extraordinary beauty of your work. And you have this thing where you tell us that we can't miss our destiny, something like that. We're always on our way to it.
Yeah, I think that I always kind of say that there's like an inner GPS. And sometimes, like GPSs, they just do what they do, and other times we get to participate in setting them. But I've really learned that life doesn't, I've both learned and been taught that life doesn't happen to me. It happens for me. And when I can take even the most challenging situations and really explore, how is this event that feels not so nice or problematic, what's in it? Why is it happening? How is it happening for me? it just allows me more opening to be able to extract, not in a Pollyanna way. You know, Pollyanna just played the glad game. She just saw everything in positive eyes, but to be able to genuinely look and see, wow, that example of in the backseat of my car, my dad wasn't just trying to crush my will and my sense of purpose. He was doing something that happened for me so that I could become a free bird and more easily follow the destiny that I'm here for, that neither he nor I knew at the time. And yeah, so I feel in a very grounded way, I can look at life and experience life that way. And again, more and more shedding the Pollyanna part of it. I'm not just trying to be positive. I can really, in an embodied way, say, oh, wow, this, whatever's happening here, holds something for me. If I can kind of find it, maybe I can extract and experience more of it. And I think many of the people you surround yourself with, Melanie, know that and will get what I'm saying, you know.
And that, one of the things that I love about you is this embodiment of or what I've observed is that no matter what, you'll pursue the treasure in something, and you never let it go. You know that it's there for you, and watching you find it, and then sometimes you've just found it in the quietest of moments, the most ordinary of moments that most of us might overlook. And that's an exemplified way of searching through life. You know, when you work with the leaders of the world, these are people who've put themselves in positions to make decisions for lots and lots of people. And so for them to be in the present moment, able to access a vast field of more information that they don't just pull through, but they can make decisions with, is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And that doesn't just come from the most recent books on leadership that are on the bookshelves of, you know, the airport, you know, because they're able to access what's needed in that moment.
And from information beyond books.
Yeah.
Well, from a vast resource.
Good information gets captured and put into books, and it's useful, but that's why trends change. The trend of the one moment doesn't always match the next. But if we can open this matrix that's kind of closed and have access to our greater knowing, then in the moment we know it might be something that's also been captured in a book, or it might be something that, you know, has never been accessed by you or spoken by you. But it allows us to be what we really say in the present, responding in the present moment with what's needed. So the way many of the big issues of our time need to be addressed might have overlap with how they needed to be addressed in the past, but there's some new parts, or we wouldn't have these problems now. There's some new parts and information that needs to come in. And I think we each have access and are recipients of this. This is why you can have research going on in Australia on something and in the Soviet Union, and the researchers are not in communication with each other, but that information is needed at this time and they discover it. With no communication. Why? Because that knowledge is needed now. And they're through their own means, which are different than my means, you know, accessing that. So I think that to be able to be in the present, for leaders to be able to know whether it's working in their organizations with their teams or finding big new approaches that people will accept to environmental issues or people issues or political issues, you know, that's powerful, you know. And like I say, it was a huge relief when I could extract a single answer on a generative phonology test. But imagine how satisfying and relieving that could be when suddenly we access the answer to make an electric light bulb, or to take the next step in solving some of our environmental or people issues in the world. Yeah, it's powerful.
Yes, it really is. And that's why I sometimes I'm just so very, I don't know, grateful just seems like too small a word, although it's one of the biggest words you can use, that our paths crossed because the time that I've spent with you, I feel I've spent time with you. Often people bump into each other, but I feel I've grown in the time I know you, and we've been through these changes. And it's watching you do this work in the world that is extraordinary, because I can see how leaders search for answers, but they're not always asking the right question. Mm-hmm. And it's when the right question gets asked of them that suddenly this mist passes, the matrix breaks open, and your ability is to get them to ask the right question without even knowing that they've done it.
Yeah, I really do think the question is super important. And sometimes the opening will come, and sometimes the opening won't come. And that's where we sometimes, because we live in a day and age where that's possible, we have to do some focused work to help support that opening so that that can come. And the biggest, what would be the right word? The biggest threat is that when we get partial opening, we experience new possibilities, we enter what I call the success trap. Oh, we think that this is it. Rather than, wow, if that happened, what if we expanded more and more opening? What if I had easier and easier and more access to the knowing that I need in the moment for everything from my personal relationship to how to spend my day to our big contributions in the world. It's I sometimes hesitate to talk because I want to stay grounded with it, because this is applicable in real life. It's not just mental bypass into some upper realms. It's something, it's an expansion and opening that we're all meant to be experiencing. And we do it in our own ways and at our own pace. But when we realize it's a possibility, then we take much more initiative to seeking it out, committing our time and energy to it. And so I don't work with just any leaders. I work with leaders who have become aware that, whoa, if they give attention in areas they had no idea would be so beneficial themselves, everything they're here and wanting and yearning to contribute becomes much more easily attainable. And that's just real. It's not airy-fairy. And it's exhilarating to see that more and more people are wanting that and seeking it out and getting it and experiencing it. And in their own way, learning what I've learned. Oh, wanting more is our destiny. If we want to really...
Piece I love.
Yeah.
And that's and what you've just said there is that it isn't this arty-farty or crazy or unfounded thing. Actually, when you experience it, that actually becomes incredibly grounded, because you start to realize just how real it is.
Yeah.
It isn't.
Yeah. And through our past experiences, we've lost our grounding. And so we need to become grounded in this body that we were given. And grounding is a real thing. And when we become grounded, everything we do is more grounded and has different outcomes. Our understanding is more grounded. It is more available to us. And so there is a part of our development that is repair work, that is regrounding, that is represencing. And it's an onward, upward opening spiral. But in the opening spiral, there's more possibility. And I love the word possibility. It's just what we're moving into. Yeah, you're a possibility person. And that's when I first met you. What I knew right off was, oh, this is not just a passing seed in the wind, this Melanie Gao. We've got something in common. So it's been exhilarating to know that there's a whole cadre of people out there around the world that are supporting each other in the same direction and supporting others. So it's...
Well, we had this conversation the other day, and I know you're not expecting me to bring this up, but we were talking about the individualization, this focus on individualization and standing out and being different and unique, whereas we are already unique.
Yeah.
What if we are sitting together and we know that it takes more than one person to help somebody else to grow? We need each other. What if experts were able to sit together? That would be a compound effect of all our power.
Yeah. This has been shown. I work with some phenomenal teachers in the world, I'm part of their teaching teams. And in one series of trainings, we literally teach the professionals this, how when they sit and imagine the matrix of support in other people doing the same work, the client in front of them feels the difference. We demonstrate it and teach that so that they go home with the embodied experience. Yeah, I'm not just here in my uniqueness and whatever. I've got a whole cadre of support. I'm glad there are other people doing the same work. They are not competitors. I am only going to work with the people I'm meant to work with at this point in time. There is no way that anyone is going to take them away from me, or that I am going to take away someone else. It's just not designed that way. But if I can take not only comfort, but support and strength in knowing that there are others that are unique in and of themselves and their work might be unique, excuse me, but that we're together aiming towards the same direction. There's power in that. There's relief in that. There's strength in that. There's...
And in fact, that makes it everybody who's doing the work welcome.
Yeah.
Because it adds to the collective. And now I want you to tell this one final story, which I always think is metaphorical. And I don't know how it could be literally metaphorical. I don't know if that means analogous, but you have this story about a girl and the rainforest chocolate bars that so perfectly illustrates what is possible.
Really. It's very important, excuse me, for us to have models in life, people where we can see how we want to be, that we can aspire into being who they are. And one of these beings for me is this child. It was an autumn afternoon, and I'm sitting in an office with 4 other desks. There's 5 of us in the office. And the door opens, and in comes this whirlwind of this little 6-year-old child. She's carrying a cardboard box in her arms, and her hair is kind of disheveled from a hard day at school. And she walks in, the door closes, and she walks right over to Frank's desk. And the entire office pauses and turns our attention there. And she sets her little cardboard box up on the desk, and she pulls out one of those world's greatest chocolate bars, little Malia Platt, and she goes around the desk so there's nothing between her and Frank, and she goes, "They're killing the rainforest. They're killing the rainforest, so you gotta buy this chocolate. It's $2. And she stood there silently while Frank slipped back, pulled out his wallet, looked out, put $2 in her little hand, she gave him the candy bar, went, put it up in the box on the desk, took it, went over to Ben's desk. "They're killing the rainforest. You gotta buy my chocolate. It's $2. There wasn't a doubt in her mind that her purpose would be clearly understood in that one sentence and supported and responded to. And she went to the next desk. "They're killing the rainforest. They're killing the rainforest. They're killing the rainforest." And at every desk, mine included, silently, not a word spoken throughout this, $2 more went into her hand. 5 candy bars lighter and $10 more in her little box. She went to the door, opened it, and left. Not a word was spoken. Nobody went into kind of a minimizing, cute, yeah, none of that. We had all, and it brings tears in my heart, we had all been just in the presence of a child so embodied, so clear, so committed to the purpose in the moment before her, not doubting at all that her mission to do her part to save the rainforest would be fully responded to, that her message would be heard and responded to, and it was. And it's years, decades later, and little Malia Platt is an image in my mind of what I'm trying to grow into fully, to be that embodied, that clear, that certain, that trusting of the response that I am inviting. So I'm sure you all have your own models in life of who you're aspiring to be. But little Malia, she's mine. One of mine.
Yeah. And we all need a little bit of more of Malia in ourselves.
Yeah.
That. Because the minute we commit to it and we are on purpose, that's when we open up this possibility. And this is what is the one thing you would like everyone to take away from this conversation that we've had today?
You know, the one thing that I would like people to take away is permission. Permission to give support to yourself through whomever you choose for your own unfolding and self-development. Your own actions, your own choices, they do that too. But to be able to receive support, some of our growth must happen in relationship and receiving support. I need somebody to help take down the blinders of the parts that I can't see or won't go to. But when I realize they're there and that those internal protective places, some of which I'm aware of and some of which I'm not, can be taken down, and the gifts that are on the other side of it, I would like you just to take away that those huge portals and openings for yourself are there waiting, and to give yourself permission to explore and reach out and receive support, because what you're here for and what your purpose is deserves that support and deserves you giving that attention and support to yourself, because we're so easily able to say, I've got it. And what we've got, but what we haven't got, we're often not even aware of, is there waiting for us.
And that's the beauty, isn't it? Who doesn't want access to the vast unknown, the answer in the minute, that generative phonology experience, but on a grander level, on a level that matters to us, that could bring through our real purpose. And you often say, it is meant to be better.
Yeah.
And this is meant to be experienced.
Yeah. This expansion is meant to happen. We're destined for that. And we can support that process.
Yeah.
And if we support that process, we're going to have all that becomes available to us there to use in our daily lives, in our work, in our missions that we're trying to bring to the world. Yeah.
And I think the lived reality of that would become, when people experience it, then you actually know you just need and want more. And that is not as you've mentioned at the beginning, it isn't that greed more. This is the need to be more, because that is what it's meant to be like.
Yeah, we're meant to move into our fullest expansion, and we're meant to have support to do that. We're not meant to do it alone, and we're meant to be doing it in exchange with others. Part of what I need, I must get from somewhere else. I'm not just going to come to it alone. And in that whole experience, we move out of that separateness into an embodied understanding of how we're connected, how your work is connected to my work, and my work is connected to yours and to each other's, and that there is a matrix, a positive matrix, not a binding, blinding matrix, but there is a matrix of connection. And when we get that, we can utilize it as a power that can make our life so much more able to meet what we're here to manifest and to experience that. And that's what fulfillment is. And I used to always say the one thing I want in life is to be able to end my life feeling fulfilled. And I'm coming more and more towards the place of knowing that can happen and that is happening. And I'm much more able to not have to be in such a state of doership with it, that I can sit back and let it unfold if I can just say yes to the moments in front of me. And the more I'm able to say yes and listen and follow the places where I'm being asked to say yes, I don't have to put out a lot of effort. It just happens. And that's not magic. But when you start experiencing it, and you'll hear many people say it, little bit different words, but the same message is what I'm saying. And the more of us that discover that and act on it and live that way, we end up living in different families, different communities, different worlds, because more people are like that, and that makes a difference. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, it's not just a beautiful picture, it's a beautiful possibility.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you so much for your time today and for having this conversation with me. It's a huge privilege. And I cannot wait for more people to come and hear your full story at the festival and maybe get a little taste of working with you in the breakthrough breakouts. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Melanie. It's so great to be able to speak with you and your audience, and take care. And just so much wishes for growth and expansion in your own work. You're phenomenal, truly phenomenal.
Thank you. I'll see you on the other side.